Have you ever sat down to start a new creative business, or even just a new project, like writing another book or recording your next album, and then been asked about your traditional 5 year plan? You know, the one where they ask you, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Have you ever been asked to map out that exact 5 year plan? Where will your creative business be? What will your revenue be? Or how will your brand evolve? Now, let's be entirely honest. For an independent creative, a conventional 5 year plan is nothing more than a fictional novel. In fact, it's worse than fiction. It's a form of socially acceptable procrastination. It gives you the illusion of progress while completely paralyzing your ability to take action today. 5 years from now, the digital landscape will change, the market will change, and you will change. So if you try to plan for the next 5 years right now, you'll most likely remain stuck at the starting line. And today, we're going to flip this entire concept on its head. I'm going to show you why your creative business doesn't need a predictable, slow moving, long term plan. Instead, you need a massive, seemingly impossible 10x goal for your future, paired with a strict, hyper focused 6 month execution window. Because, as counterintuitive as it sounds, it's actually significantly easier to 10x your creative business than it is to merely double it. So let's talk about why. Welcome to Focus, Finish, Grow with Bill Walker, a podcast for independent creatives who want to turn scattered ideas into focused action, consistent visibility, and real creative momentum. And today, we're talking about time, speed, and the scope of your goals. When traditional business advisors talk about strategy, they always talk about slow, incremental growth. And in a corporate environment with hundreds or thousands of employees and millions of dollars in capital, that might make sense. Because those businesses move like massive cargo ships. They're slow, heavy, and require miles of notice just to turn 10 degrees. But you're an independent creative entrepreneur. You're not a cargo ship. You're a jet ski. You're fast, agile, and built to move with speed. And here's the reality of the creative mind. If you go slow, you crash. I mean, think about how a jet ski works. It gets its stability from its speed. If you cut the throttle and try to stand up on a jet ski while it's perfectly still, you're most likely going to tip over into the water. It's the velocity. That is what keeps you upright. And creative entrepreneurs are exactly the same. Imagine what happens when a creative jet ski slows down to a crawl. For example, when you take 3 weeks to pick a color palette, or 2 months debating which website host to use, that void is immediately filled with doubt, overthinking, and shiny object interference. You start drifting off course because you aren't moving fast enough to maintain your current momentum. Creatives need momentum. We require it. We thrive on velocity. Let's look at what happens when you apply normal, slow speed to a small, incremental goal. Let's say that your goal is to just double your creative income next year. You think, I just want to make a little bit of extra money. Your brain completely hits a lull because a small goal doesn't demand a major change in your behavior. It just asks you to work a little bit harder, sleep a little bit less, and drag your current messy habits along with you. So you try to solve a 2x goal by doing more of what you're already doing. If you're already exhausted, doubling your effort just makes you doubly exhausted. Small, incremental goals breed almost guaranteed burnout. What you actually need to unlock your potential is an impossible goal. There's a popular concept popularized by strategic coaches Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and that is it's far easier to 10x your results than it is to 2x them. When you aim to merely double your creative income, you try to solve the problem using your old ways of thinking. But when you aim to 10x your output, lifestyle, and business, you can't rely on your old methods. You know, the ones that you're used to doing and how you're used to thinking. A 10x goal mandates a total system upgrade. It demands that you think in a way you have never allowed yourself to think before. It forces you to build an execution engine that operates on leverage, not just raw, exhausting hours. Now, I'm not asking you to throw away your long term vision. However, I am asking you to change how you view it. Instead of writing a rigid corporate plan for the next 5 years, I want you to imagine a series of massive, exponential transformations that occur in 6 month timeframes. Then, if you string together 4 or 5 of these 10x experiences over the next 5 years, you will undergo a massive transformation financially, personally, educationally, and professionally. You literally become a completely different tier of creator. You become capable of things you've never thought possible. So, why does this work? Because a massive, impossible goal acts as an automatic filter for your life. The moment you look at an impossible 10x target, it instantly reveals the 80% of your current activities that are completely wasting your time. Imagine telling yourself, I want to build a business that helps 10,000 independent creators build profitable and sustainable creative businesses over the next 12 to 18 months. Or, I want to provide entertainment and sell 1 million copies of my new fantasy book by the end of this year. Or, I want millions of people to download my new album. If you have goals such as these, you can no longer afford to spend your afternoons tweaking minor details on a social media graphic that only 10 people will see. Additionally, you can no longer afford to spend your evenings binge watching your favorite show. The scale of the goal forces you to look at your half finished projects, your endless scrolling, and your administrative busywork and say, none of this is capable of getting me to a 10x destination. An impossible goal gives you the ultimate clarity to implement a distraction firewall, aka the future list. It eliminates the trivial options and forces you to focus strictly on what matters. It makes choosing your next priority or primary quest incredibly easy because 99% of your distracted, shiny object ideas are mathematically incapable of hitting a 10x target. But a 10x goal is only half the equation. If you just sit around daydreaming about a massive 1 year or 2 year goal, you're just a daydreamer. You're trapped in the clouds. The secret to turning that impossible vision into reality is how you deconstruct it into the present moment. So if you're listening to this right now and recognizing that you've been playing way too small with your creative business, or that you've been trapped in that endless loop of planning without actual execution, my business partner Greg and I want to help you escape from that endless loop of planning and map out your actual road to success. Every Tuesday, we host a live free webinar called Create, Focus, Finish, Grow. Inside this training, we show you exactly how to take a massive creative vision and safely deconstruct it into a highly practical, repeatable 6 month system. We don't use manufactured value stacks, fake bonuses, or high pressure tactics. We just provide the operational framework that independent creators need to stop stalling, step into their true authority, and build profitable, sustainable creative businesses. If you want to join us for our next live session, click the link down in the description below. Grab your spot, and let's get you on your journey to creative success. Now, let's talk about how we take that massive 10x vision and lock it into a strict 6 month time frame. To successfully build a creative business, you must learn how to hold two distinct timelines in your head simultaneously. You must think like a 10x visionary for your future, and you must execute like an elite business owner in 6 month timeframes. We operate strictly in 180-day windows. Why? Because 6 months is short enough that you can see the finish line from day one, which maintains that jet ski speed you need to outrun resistance and distraction. It's long enough to actually build, market, launch, and get meaningful data to prepare you for the next 6 month time frame. Within that 6 month time frame, you choose one core objective that moves you toward your 10x future. This becomes your primary quest. Now, let's answer a common question I get from creatives everywhere. What's the difference between a 6 month time frame and a primary quest cycle? A 6 month time frame is your commitment to the system, to the framework. But within that time frame, the actual timeline to complete a specific project is what we call a cycle. For example, your primary quest might be something massive that takes 12 months to build, market, and launch, such as a science fiction novel. That kind of primary quest would take 2 6-month timeframes to complete. But let's say you're launching something highly focused, like a new course or community. That might only require a 90-day cycle. In that case, you could actually run 2 complete project cycles back to back within a single 6-month timeframe. Here's how you deconstruct an impossible goal into daily velocity using the Create framework. First, you choose your primary quest. What is the main goal or project that is going to command all of your time, focus, resources, and creative attention? Once your primary quest is chosen, you work backward from that big picture. For this specific 6-month time frame, what is the hard deadline by which your project is complete and is shipped or go live? This is called your focus anchor date. If you're launching a new course, a new nonfiction book, or your next album, pin that date to the calendar. If it isn't on the calendar with a hard deadline, it simply doesn't exist in reality. Next, define your project's milestones. This is accomplished by reverse engineering your entire project. You take your primary quest focus anchor date and break it down into monthly and weekly milestones, beginning at the end and working backwards towards the beginning. This reduces the friction of your massive goal by turning it into a clear blueprint with easily identifiable next steps. You don't work on month 5's tasks today. You only work on that which is right in front of you for this specific week. All right, number 3, it's time to get to work. This is where the 10x thinking meets daily execution. You take your weekly milestone and deconstruct it all the way down to what we call the immediate task. The immediate task is the single smallest action required today to maintain your project's trajectory. This week, when you begin working in your dedicated creative or amplification blocks, you're not staring at an undefinable future. You're simply executing one tiny, highly strategic packet of work. And because that packet was reverse engineered from a 10x vision, that small action carries a massive amount of strategic power. And this enables you to move fast. You finish the first task, then the second, and then the next, and all of a sudden, you're beginning to build real momentum. When you pair a massive impossible goal with a fast, hyper-focused 6-month execution style, your creative life changes completely. You stop letting shiny objects pull you off course because you're moving too fast and with too much purpose to be derailed. You don't need a conventional, slow-moving 5-year plan that puts your success off into the distant future. You need to choose what matters today, reverse engineer the path from your impossible vision, and run your execution engine with absolute discipline. Then, as you string 4 or 5 of these 6-month timeframes together, you won't even recognize the business or the life you've built, and you've done it in just a few years. You will become more than you ever thought possible. Choose what matters, do the work, build momentum. If this new way of looking at your creative goals connected with you, can you do me a huge favor? If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe and drop a comment below sharing the one impossible 10x goal you want to achieve over the next 6 to 12 months. And if you're listening to the audio on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast providers, leave a quick review to help me reach and connect with more creative entrepreneurs. Be sure to grab a spot in our free weekly webinar via the link in the description to get the full blueprint of the Create operating system. I'm Bill Walker. This is Focus, Finish, Grow. Stop playing small, upgrade your system, and I'll see you in the next episode.